everybody, let's sing a song. I like to eat your butt. I like to eat your butt.
Ah, no! You mother... You shut up! I'll kill you! I'll kill you dead, you sucking son of a... Ah! I hate musicals.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor and I'll be your host as we go through all the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out our new introduction video. There's a link to that in the description below and it'll give you a pretty good synopsis of what the Horror Movie Syllabus is all about. In short, we usually take a particular subgenre of horror and then we pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this is our Is It Syllabus-Worthy series, where I take a recommendation of a horror movie that I've never seen from you guys in the comments in our other videos, and I watch it without knowing anything about it, and then I let you know what I think and whether or not it's worthy of being on the Horror Movie Syllabus. Today's recommendation came from Noah Hook, my good friend and the artist behind the very popular Hamburgers and Horror YouTube channel. If you haven't seen that channel, check it out. It's definitely awesome. Noah is hilarious. And he has recommended Meet the Feebles. He recommended this movie in the splatter video that I did, and he said that the movie was, quote, crazier than Dead Alive, and not really horror. That's what he said about it, so that's what I had to go on. I knew it was a Peter Jackson film. I'd heard of it before, but I'd never seen it. And crazier than Dead Alive is a tall order, because Dead Alive is pretty crazy. We've talked about it on the channel, and I love it. And it's really super gory and gross. And so he's recommending a splatter movie that's crazier than Dead Alive. That's got some expectations for it, but my expectations are a little bit tempered because the other thing I know about Meet the Feebles is that it's about, like, puppets. And so I don't know what the hell that's supposed to be about, man. It's an odd one for sure, but it's early Peter Jackson, so I'm intrigued, to say the least, going into this. That's all I knew about it, and I didn't bother to look anything else up before I checked it out. I just went in as blind as I could be, which is what I've just told you, and I still wasn't prepared for what came up. But does that mean I liked it? Does that mean I hated it? Let's find out. Like I said, today we're talking about Meet the Feebles. And Meet the Feebles came out in 1989 and is directed by Academy Award-winning director Peter Jackson of Lord of the Rings fame, amongst other movies that are great. We talked about Heavenly Creatures, for example. And this is an early work of his, and it is very, very strange, even by his early work standards. We mentioned Dead Alive. We've also talked about Bad Taste. And his early work is really gross, really bizarre, really, a little juvenile, if we're being honest for you. And this is no different, and might be worse, really, but we're about to get into all that in just a minute. If you haven't seen the movie before, it's basically kind of a parody of the Muppets. It's about a group of individuals, little animal-based puppets that have a variety show, and they sing songs and whatnot, just like the Muppets, but they are very vulgar and violent and gross and disgusting. And that's kind of the joke being that they're like adult puppets, adult Muppets, if you will. And that's pretty much the movie, really, in a nutshell. I would say, I'm not going to spoil it any further for you, but I don't think there's really a whole lot to spoil for you. That's the premise of the movie right there. There is technically a plot, but it doesn't really matter. And that's maybe one of my issues with the movie, is that the plot doesn't really matter. The whole premise is based on this joke of what if Muppets cursed and had sex and did drugs and killed each other. Okay, so let's dig into it. So the thing about this movie that's surprising to me is that I know the movie is relatively low budget. Now, I don't mean low budget like do-it-yourself backyard movie. Like, there's still money behind this. I actually did the research after watching the movie, and Jackson and his crew had gotten grants from the New Zealand Society of whatever, Film Commission or something like that. And so they had like 750 grand to play with, which is not an insignificant amount of money. But considering that that's still not a ton of movie, even in 1989, this movie looks really good. The puppets in particular are very, very cool. They look professional. They move really well. They look like they're being done by actual, real, honest-to-God puppeteers, and I think they are, or at least people who had puppeteering expertise. It's not like the Henson Company came in to do all this, like Jim Henson, but they are legitimate people doing the puppeteering, and it shows. It's really good. And the puppets are cool designs. Like each character is distinctive. They're each based on a different animal, and they really do evoke the Muppets. They really have, there's a character that kind of looks like Rizzo the Rat. There's a character that kind of reminds you of Miss Piggy. And that's obviously by design, and it's very effective. It really did create those allegories well, but the characters on their own have distinct personalities. They have distinct looks. They look really cool. Like there's a evil fly that's like a reporter, and he looks gross and he's really disgusting. And that's the thing, the disgusting characters look disgusting, and the cute characters look cute. Like the good guys look cute. There's a hedgehog who's kind of a main character who's very cute, and his love interest is a poodle, and she's very cute. And so and then like the bad guys, like there's that catfish bad guy and the aforementioned fly, and there's like a rat, and they all look skeezy, and so they really captured that simplistic good guys look good, bad guys look bad aspect to it, and that adds to the value of the movie, because the whole movie's base is like shock value, and it's like they don't work if everybody just looks gross and disgusting. Like you need to have some pure looking characters in order to kind of violate them and make it feel perverse. If you don't have something clean, you can't make it dirty in the movie. And they understood that. So I tip my hat to them for that aspect of it, because the movie is really kind of a gross out fest. And, it's a gross out fest for the sake of shock value, which is both a positive and a negative. I like gross stuff. I like gore. I like, shocking things. I like shock value. I like to be shocked. I'm down for all of that. So I'm not like prudish about this by any stretch of the imagination. However, there is a kind of a critical mass when it comes to stuff like this. And the example I always use, and it's not so much about gross stuff as it is about nudity, is the movie Showgirls. When I saw the movie Showgirls, it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes long or something. It's a long movie. And there are naked women in that movie the entire time. And at some point in that movie, like halfway through, or maybe even earlier than that, you become desensitized. You've seen so many nipples at that point that it doesn't matter anymore. It's no longer titillating. It's no longer exciting. It's no longer even interesting, because you've become desensitized. You become numb to it. You're not even seeing the breasts anymore. They're just like you're seeing through them. And that's maybe an issue here as well for Meet the Feebles, is that there's so much shocking stuff. It's completely filled with shocking, gory, gross, inappropriate, offensive things that it's just like it hits critical mass. I mean, like, Noah said it outdoes Brain Dead, and it does. It outdoes Brain Dead, it outdoes Bad Taste by far. There is so much cursing and nudity and sex and murder and sexual assault and drug use and ejaculation and corpophagia and mass shootings that it's just there's so much in there that at some point it's not shocking you anymore. It's just you become numb to it. And when that's all there is in the movie, that's a bit of a problem. I like the fact that absolutely nothing was off limits. I liked the fact that the movie kept trying to shock me and still managed to keep shocking me at points. Like there are things that I'm just like, really, they're going there? What the hell? And so it still managed to keep pushing an envelope, even though that envelope had already been stuffed full so hard that I have to give it up. That's bold. It's an impressive feat to be continuously offensive and shocking and still manage to get a rise out of me every once in a while over the course of a 90-minute movie. But it was too much. And again, not too much like, oh, I'm clutching my pearls, I'm so offended, or I'm so fragile and prudish, because it's just a sensory overload. It's just like at some point I stopped feeling the hitting of this. Like by the time I'm getting to the end and there's a mass shooting, I don't feel it at all. When I'm seeing like sexual assault done, it's like that. I'm just kind of like, and it's supposed to be kind of funny, and I get that. But it's a joke. It's wearing too thin, and it really does. It wears thin as it goes on. And if it's trying to shock and offend you, again, I'm kind of becoming desensitized to it by this point in the movie. And that again is an issue because the story itself is meh. It's a meandering story. The plot is kind of all over the place. You're kind of following this hippo who wants to be the lead singer, and her producer boyfriend is cheating on her, and then there's like a new guy that's coming to the production, and he's in love with this poodle. and he's trying to win her over, but she's also being, pursued for this porn thing. And this other guy who's got like he's dying from sexually transmitted disease. There's so many different things going on, so many different little characters to follow that it's just too much. It's too much. And then of course they're working in songs and all this. And you know me, I hate a musical. They're working in music into this. And I'll be honest, the songs, the musical numbers, they're not really doing anything for me. The exception being One Leg Missing. There's a song in there called One Leg Missing that genuinely made me laugh. It was actually pretty funny. But by the time I get to the sodomy song, again, it's coming too late in the movie to shock me at this point because I've already been shocked so much. The joke has worn thin. The whole thing about this is like it's kind of a one note premise. It's like, what if the Muppets were perverse? What if they were dirty? What if it was a dirty version of the Muppets? It's funny. It's clever. It's a neat idea, but it overstays its welcome. It's not. It doesn't have the premise doesn't sustain 90 minutes. Is I guess what I'd say to that. And it's interesting because again, it's Peter Jackson, and his early work is kind of like this. He's kind of juvenile. He likes gross stuff. He likes, offensive stuff. He's liking to shock. And I'm cool with that. Like I said, I'm not, I liked it more when I was younger than I do now, but I'm okay with that. I loved Brain Dead. I love Bad Taste. But him trying to do adult humor with these Muppet-like characters, it comes off even more juvenile, which is kind of funny to me. It doesn't really land for me over the course of 90 minutes. It was starting out okay. I didn't love the opening number, but seeing the characters and seeing the different interactions and listening to them curse and some of the really wild sex stuff that they were doing was hitting for me. But at some point in the movie, and I don't know exactly when it was, but it's probably 30, 40 minutes into it, it was starting to wear thin. It was starting to get a little bit old. And while I was still really impressed with the puppetry and the look of the characters, the lack of a story to latch onto, the lack of any character to feel any kind of connection with was a problem for the movie because all it really had then was gross out jokes. And there was nothing else to hold on to. And so once I started getting bored of the gross out jokes, I started to lose interest in the movie. But did I lose so much interest that it would not be syllabus worthy? Well, let's find out. So, is Meet the Feebles syllabus worthy? No. No, it's not for me, I guess. Maybe. I mean, look, it's not really horror, but that's not the reason why I wouldn't put it on the syllabus because, it's got enough gross and violent things in there for me to not care, but it's just gross and violent things. That's all there really is to it. There's not enough substance there outside of that to hit for me. It's a joke that wore thin. It's got a scattershot plot that I can't really wrap my head around because I don't care about any of the characters, and the plot's not deep enough to give me anything to sink my teeth into. It's just gross out jokes. And I'll admit, for a while, the gross out jokes are working for me because they are way over the top, way out of line, way offensive. Like if you ever wanted to see like a Muppet, peeping on a threesome with bunnies and masturbating to it, this is the movie for you. And I thought that was shocking. I was shocked by that and kind of thought it was funny, kind of thought it was gross, but the movie stays in that vein for a very long time. And so at some point I'm rolling my eyes with boredom, or I'm kind of just getting a little cynical about it. And it's like, man, you really are trying to just shock at every turn. Like some of the stuff that's happening with like the sexual assault and stuff like that, I'm just like, really? Are you really going there with that? Because it just feels at this point that you are just trying so hard to offend. It feels like just like such an effort. And look, the premise is a cute one, perverse Muppets doing sex and drugs and stuff like that. I'm down for that. But again, 90 minutes feels too long. And then also, this is my first time seeing this movie, even though it came out, whatever, like 30 years ago. So I look at it now when we've seen that premise kind of done again in things like Happy Time Murders or like even Avenue Q, something like that. Like we've seen this done again, but so it doesn't feel as fresh and original. It feels in retrospect like a little bit stale to me, even though technically at the time it probably was more fresh and original, and I acknowledge that. But the way I'm experiencing this this doesn't feel like the most original idea. Again, I was still down for it. I was still open to it, but it did wind up losing me as I went through, and I couldn't find an excuse to try to squeeze it onto a syllabus for any way, shape, or form. Like, I could see people watching this and asking themselves, like, how could Peter Jackson, director of Lord of the Rings, make this? And I actually look at it from the opposite, having seen his other earlier work, and I say, how could Peter Jackson make Lord of the Rings? How did he go from making this, which is trash? It's unabashedly trash. It's kind of more like a trauma movie, really. And again, and that's not necessarily a dig at it, but that's the kind of vibe they're going for, trying to gross you out, trying to offend. And to me, that can get tired. As you know, I've talked about some trauma movies in the past, and we're going to talk about a lot of trauma movies in the future. It can wear a little bit thin, but there is an audience for it. But those kind of directors don't usually break big. James Gunn notwithstanding, they don't usually break big. And Peter Jackson, again, Academy Award winner for Lord of the Rings, and deservedly so. Not to mention Heavenly Creatures, which we have talked about on the channel, which is a masterpiece in my opinion. I think that movie is excellent. So Peter Jackson matured as a filmmaker. There's no denying that. But you watch this movie and you'd be like, I can't believe it's the same guy. I can't believe the visual style is good in here, but there's nothing in this that would make you think Lord of the Rings. You wouldn't think he had it in him. Which I guess is a testament to him, but his skill and his evolution. It really is an interesting thing. But as a time artifact, like to kind of document his progression, it's maybe interesting in that sense. But as a movie on its own and its own merits, it's not tremendously interesting. So it's not one I would definitely recommend to you or anything like that. It's not one that I can see myself revisiting again. Maybe if there was less music in it, maybe if it was a little bit shorter, like as a series of shorts, this might have worked a little bit better. And I think it actually was originally designed to be like a TV show. And in bite-sized format, this might have worked a little bit better for me. But as a 90-minute movie, it wears a little bit thin. So no, it's not going to make the syllabus. And again, I did have a horrible time, but it may be one of the least movies that I've liked in recommendations. It overstayed its welcome. It really wore me down. I wasn't really enamored with it, and by the time the movie ended, I was ready for it to be over. So that is my my verdict on this one. Definitely not a horror movie syllabus contender, not one I'll be revisiting, but I know that it has a cult following. I know that some of you probably love this movie. So chime in the comments below. Defend the movie if you think it needs to be defended. Tell me what I'm missing about it that makes it so great or makes it worthy of the syllabus. By all means, I'm open to hearing other viewpoints on it. But for me, it's not really hitting the mark for me. But that's okay. They can't always be winners. Speaking of winners, let's see if I can be one today when I look at Horror Trivia Pursuit. It's that time when I read a card live on camera and try to answer the horror trivia question. And it's Meet the Feebles, right? So we're going to go with the gore category on the card for obvious reasons. And the question is, tanning beds caused the demise of how many characters in 2006's Final Destination 3? And I know the answer to this. I love the Final Destination movies. We did talk about that series on the channel earlier. I love them. I love those movies. They're just wonderfully imaginative. The stories, the plots are again kind of thin, like Meet the Feels, but there's enough of a characterization for me to latch onto that I still have a good time. And the kills are always diverse and interesting and fun. So those movies really work for me. Now, they don't blur together to me in terms of story because each one has a unique opening accident or event that leads to all the kills that wind up being the through line for the rest of the movie. And so I'm always able to remember which movie is which by what the opening incident was, right? And in the third movie, it's the amusement park roller coaster crash. So that's how I keep them distinguished. But the individual kills in the movies themselves, I can't necessarily pinpoint where they are. Like if you were to ask me like, oh, which movie is the one where the guy slips on going out of his fire escape and gets hit by the fire escape and dies? I'm not sure. I think it's part 2, by the way. But I'm never quite sure which kills in which movie. But that's not what this is asking me. It's not asking me which movie, because it's telling me it's Final Destination 3. It's asking me how many people died in that tanning bed accident. And I remember the scene very well. That's the thing. I remember the kills themselves very well. They're very memorable. That's the whole point. But I don't remember what movies they go into. But it doesn't matter for this question. And I know the answer to this. I hope you do too. lock your answer in because I've prattled on long enough at this point. I'm going to answer, and my answer is 2. There's the 2 girls that go into the tanning salon. They're each in the beds next to each other, and they strip down, and they get locked into their tanning beds inadvertently, and then the tanning thing malfunctions, and the heat starts going up, and they get barbecued in there. And it's a pretty funny scene. It's pretty good. I really like it. And it's 2. It's 2 women. I'm like 99% sure that it's 2. But let's check the card, make sure I'm right. It's 2. It's 2. That is correct. And I'll bet you a lot of you got that too, because that's a very popular series. So I'll bet you most of you got that one right. And if you hadn't got it right, it's probably because you haven't seen the series. And if you haven't seen the series, you should definitely check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's a good ride. If you like gory kills, these movies are going to deliver for you. So I hopefully have delivered as well. I hopefully have delivered a good time talking about this Meet the Feebles movie. Thank you, Noah, again for the recommendation. It is not necessarily my favorite movie or anything like that, but I'm glad I watched it because it's a good peek behind the career of Peter Jackson, and it makes me appreciate the good movies all the more. But hopefully you guys had a good time. Thank you for sticking around. Next week we'll be talking about something completely different, but until then, class dismissed.